Good morning, Pura Vida. Welcome to this week's Dharma Talk, and thank you for joining us here at beautiful Bali Rica on a beautiful Costa Rica morning, and wherever you are on the internet. And now, as we open, our friend Pam, a yoga teacher and meditation leader, is going to give us an opening with a guided meditation.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just something real simple, just to kind of connect mind and body and get us here in the moment. Yes. So take up a seated posture. Legs can be underneath you or stretched out in front of you. There's really no right or wrong. If you're seated on a bench, try to get your feet down so that you can touch the floor or touch one of the little footstools, just so that you can really feel the ground beneath you. Eyes open or eyes closed. There's really no right or wrong way. And I just want you to feel then the parts of the body that are touching down. So for you, if that's the soles of the feet or the backs of the legs, the hip points, maybe the sides of the thighs are touching down as well. And I want you to just notice that connection to the floor. Take a deep breath. In through the nose, try to fill as fully as you can and sigh it out. Exhale all your air out. And feel it. Send it down to those places that are touching the floor and touching the mat. And just spread out. Really feel the ground beneath you. Take a breath. And sigh into the body. Feel the body. Breath moving the body. And we'll continue to build your posture. So you've got your foundation, got parts of the body touching the floor. Next, so I want you to bring your attention to your pelvic floor. So really deep within the pelvis, bring your attention to that spot. Take a breath. Notice that spot. Spread it down towards the floor. Take up lots of space. That's your center. That's your core. That's your root. Get into your root and settle into that. Settle into your confidence in your person. In and out through the nose. And building on that, bring your attention to the space just beneath the belly button and stack that up on top of your root and take a breath. Breathe into that space. Continue to grow upwards. So from your roots, we're growing upwards to the space around the diaphragm. And just notice the diaphragm. Really notice the breath. Diaphragm expands and contracts with every breath. Notice how that changes the belly, the rib cage, and stack the diaphragm up on top of the root, the belly button, and now the diaphragm. And still building our posture, bring your attention to your heart center. You can touch your heart center if you like. And really feel the breath there. Feel the warmth. Build the warmth. Be intentional. kind of stack that space up on top of the diaphragm. So we're really building a dignified posture, a grounded posture, just coming into the body. And next, notice the throat. Notice the breath in the throat and in the neck. Feel the shoulder blades relax down away from the neck, and the ears, the shoulders soften. And tuck the chin just a hair so that the throat opens better and you can really move lots of breath. And coming into alignment with your root, your belly, your diaphragm, and your heart. Stack the throat. So next, breathe into the space between the eyebrows. Notice the space between the eyebrows and try to soften the eyebrows if they're not already. And let that spread across the face, soften the face. And just take a breath here. Connecting down to the earth, growing up towards the sky. And last, notice the crown of the head, pointed up towards the heavens. Stack that like the Christmas tree, like the light on the top of your Christmas tree. So now you're reaching and growing from a nice rooted space up through the belly, the diaphragm, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. In a nice, dignified, relaxed, aware posture. And if you like, you can open the eyes or just allow the eyes to open gently, softly. Keep the gaze soft. Just bring your hands together at your heart. Bow the head. Namaste. Good morning. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Pam.
Thank you.
Oh, that was. I feel better already. I don't know about the rest of you. Before Jeff sits down, though, I want to come on, Jeff. I want to apologize to Pam as a yoga teacher, any other yoga teachers, and any yoga practitioners, because I make these weird mistakes now. And one of them last week, we were talking about the most popular spiritual books. And the number one selling, other than like the Bible or the Quran or Red Torah, is Confessions, autobiography of a yogi. And I said autobiography of a yoga. And I not only said it once, I said it 3 times. I said I might as well have said autobiography of a down dog. So gosh, you guys are really good at forgiving me, and nobody snickered or said, shh.
We're snickering now.
Snicker now. That's it, at my expense. But I waited to say it till she finished, and so that the people, I can apologize to the people on the internet as well. You just have to do these things. So, Jeff is giving a talk today on right intention and the wisdom teachings.
Yes.
Right?
I was really pleased when I came in this morning to see the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path up here in front. It reminds me of when I led AA groups, and it was the 12 steps. And the 12, there's another set of 12. Who knows? The 12 promises, I forget. Anyway, those were always side by side, and they were always front and center So this is the Buddhist version of AA.
Very similar.
Yeah.
I think AA is a version of Buddhism, not the other way around.
Oh,
Well, I think Buddhism came first.
I think so.
I think so too, with a down dog.
Well, I want to do a little before we get to the first of the Eightfold Path today. I want to review what led into the Eightfold Path, which is the Four Noble Truths. This is, if you're not familiar with this, the Buddha, after his time under the Bodhi tree and his enlightenment, this was his first set of presentations. And they formed the basis and the foundation for his teachings. And it started with the Four Noble Truths. I'm going to give you my version of the Four Noble Truths, but they're close to the Buddha version, hopefully. The first one is a realistic view, and that is that life includes and involves suffering. The second is that the cause of our suffering and the cause of the general suffering in the world have to do with 5 things: clinging, grasping, craving, delusion, ignorance. I didn't used to know those, now I know them. It's good. The third noble truth builds on the idea that there is a remedy. This cycle of suffering caused by these 5 factors in us and in the world has an out, has an escape route, has an alternative. And the alternative is the exact antithesis of the second one. A life where there isn't clinging, a life where there isn't grasping, a life where there isn't craving, a life where there isn't ignorance and delusion. The letting go of those things that we easily grab onto is the remedy. Meditation, practices, community, involvement in something like this, all are meant to lead people away from suffering. The goal of Buddha was simply the cessation of suffering.
And happiness.
And the result being happiness. This might seem pie in the sky, but it's not. This is realism. And the Buddha wanted to make sure that this was not just theory, but it actually was the practices that go along with Buddhism would lead you away from the things that cause suffering into a world of happiness.
What he called the true nature of reality.
The true nature of reality. And so the fourth noble truth is the Eightfold Path. So the first 3 talk about the problem, the cause of the problem, the remedy for the problem. The fourth is, let's practice this.
Action.
I'm a therapist. It's nice to talk about people's emotions, relationships, histories, all those kind of things. And yet, when you get to the end of however long the session is, what will you do about this? I'm a therapist who gives homework. If we talked about this and there's something that is part of your journey at this point, what will you do next? What action will you do? This is exactly the same as that. And so the Eightfold Path, which is put up here, we can read it right from the board. Right view, right thinking, right speech, right vocation, right action, right vocation, right effort, mindfulness, and concentration. We're at the very beginning of this path again, and each time you go through it, if you've gone through this before with us, there's probably some new material for you to consider because your life has evolved to this next spot.
Everything in life is caught up in some of this.
Yes. It's
not linear.
No, it's not linear, it's circular.
Everything goes together.
The idea of right, all these rights, is very different than the other rights of other religions. This is right, therefore this is wrong. These are positive suggestions how to live a tranquil voyage.
Yeah. Skillful means.
Hence, a wheel. The Eightfold Path is symbolized in a wheel of an old ship with 8 places you hold on. And if you practice these things, the close to guarantee is that you will have a more tranquil voyage. If you get all the way to the point of full enlightenment, where you don't cling, grasp, crave, aren't deluded, and aren't ignorant, if you get to that spot, there will not be anything in life that will throw you. Interestingly, because I have a theology background as well, and with my BA, this sounds very similar to Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 7. His most famous speech. Completely parallel with Buddha's most famous speech. And in that, he ends this big speech with what it is to live a good life. And what it is to live a good life, Jesus said, was to build your house on a rock, not on the sand. And that if you build your house on something solid like a rock, no matter what happens in life, you'll still be standing there. That's true enlightenment. When the circumstances don't throw you, when the waves coming at you don't deter your voyage, that you'll be tranquil in the middle of a storm. So the really beautiful thing about this Eightfold Path is it's meant to give you some guidance if you're willing to receive it. It's not commanded, it's suggested. It's a much more beautiful way of doing that. Have you ever commanded someone to do something and you usually get something fairly negative? If you suggest something, sometimes people will receive your suggestions. Not always, but sometimes. And so these suggestions are for promoting learning, growth, self-discovery, wisdom, moderation, the middle way, simplicity, integrated, skillful, balanced life circumstances. That's the promises of this practice. And if you had that as you practice this, you sense that there's growth in those areas for you. Anybody here enlightened yet? Fully? I'm not. I could give you 4 circumstances where the circumstances of this last week threw me. And I knew as I was watching myself that they were throwing me and that I had a chance to out of that. And most of those, I chose it. So this is really practical stuff, but it's also theoretical. So I want to start, before we do right understanding, I need a volunteer who will have a communication discussion with me. We got a volunteer, not Barb. I did this with Barb last time. Would somebody like to do, okay. So you sit over there and I'll sit here. I'd like for us to practice what good communication looks like. And then I want you to tell me what the word. Oh, that's good. Thank you. Can you get both of us? Okay, now we can. Okay. So I want you to tell us, after we have this conversation, what we got out of this conversation about each other. Okay? So I have no idea. Let's talk about, what would you like to talk about? How about your a childhood Christmas story. Do you have one?
No.
If I started, could you get one?
Probably.
Do you want another topic?
It's fine.
Okay, good.
Is that Lisa?
Yes, Lisa.
Kumbaya.
So, Lisa, one of my favorites was that I would go with my older cousins in northern Minnesota to my grandparents' home, and we would go up in the barn and jump around. I was a city boy, so that was a new thing, and my cousins were all older, and I was young and impressionable, and that's where I tried my first cigarette. And my first drop of alcohol, and there are a few other things I'm not going to even tell you about that. I loved going with my older cousins because they were mischievous, and I was such a good kid from the city. And so, if my cousins in Georgia now watch this, remember what it was like at the grandparents' house. So it wasn't about Christmas trees and presents and all those things. It was really that I could be with my older cousins.
Yeah. Well,
So
I'd
I'd like you to do one thing.
Okay.
Will you summarize what I just said to you?
Well, it was framed with Christmas. The story was really about getting to spend time with your cousins and some adventures that you're having and trying new things and playing and testing the boundaries of different areas in life as kids do, and just really enjoying getting to spend that time with your cousins.
Good. Thank you. That was all right.
Okay, good. My story will be the same, but not Christmas as well, but it's summertime. So with my cousins, our families would gather at my grandparents' cottage every few years. And there's a whole slew of kids. So we would play in the water and find other kids around. But our family, with the name of Virtue, were very virtuous. And so we had bonfires at night and would sit around and we would sing songs and have s'mores. And as Sandy says, kumbaya. But we did sing kumbaya even. Yeah. And my family loves to play games. So that's really what we did the whole time.
Okay.
So it was a little bit more wholesome. But we found those other adventures elsewhere. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Got it.
that's our cousin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you attached to the cousins part of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and talked about summer cottage by the water and playing games and a bunch of people being around and all the fun that you had with your cousins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. So, what did Lisa and I get out of that conversation? See if you can say it in a word. What did we get?
Connection. Share.
We did have a connection. That's true. What else?
Sharing.
Sharing, right?
Listening.
Listening. That listening was a tool that got us there. Yes.
Some nostalgia.
Some nostalgia. What else?
I would say trust.
You think so? Huh? Okay, probably.
I've shared history.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding.
Yes.
Enjoyment.
Enjoyment. Yeah. So we got a bunch of things out of that. The goal of good communication is what Barb said. We understood each other's childhood for a moment.
That's the connection, yeah.
The result of that, the tools were listening and sharing and eye contact and all the communication tools. The goal was, my goal in doing this with you was that we would understand each other a little more. Some of the results are closeness and all the other things that come with that. It's interesting that that's where the Buddha starts with the with the Eightfold Path.
Can I add one thing in there?
You can?
If you have only three choices, attraction, aversion, or indifference, when you meet someone or in any situation, this short interchange, if you two had just met, now there's an attraction. There's an almost instant connection or friendship.
Yep.
You don't have there are other people you could meet and you'd have an instant aversion after a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So this was really a very powerful communication for attraction, to stay friends,
Absolutely.
to create a friendship.
Yep.
The building of the rock. So
Absolutely, forming something on the rock.
Mm.
That we understand each other will have, even just about that little thing, could have enormous benefits, even though it seems like a small thing, just telling stories of our childhood. And so I think that it's really appropriate that in communication, the number one goal is understanding, not agreement, not conflict resolution, but understanding. And that's where the Buddha started. So thank you for doing that with me. And you found out a bit of my rebel nature. And how easily influenced I was.
Someday I'll tell you some of my
I
borrowed
was
stories.
most of my cousins were like 13, 14, and I was 8. So I had and my parents just sent me off to the cousins. Little did they know what I would learn. So if communication is about understanding, the Buddha starts with that idea that if the circular path of ethical actions starts with an understanding and a view. There are some things that this is about and some things that it's not about. First of all, to have a right understanding is current. It's about where your understanding is at this moment in time. Buddhists are all about that. You don't have yesterday, you don't have 10 years ago, you don't have tomorrow. If you live fully, mindfully in the present, focused, with a great understanding of yourself and what's happening, then this will be reality in real time. The Buddha said, my teachings are a method to experience reality. My teachings are a method to experience reality.
What does that mean?
That means that
What does she think it means?
Let's
have a little communication here.
Go. What would you think it is, Barbara?
I don't know. That's why I asked.
Okay. Well, I'll give you
But
some
did she
things.
find out more if she answers?
Let me give you some things that it's not. It's not pie in the sky. It's not fiction. It's not fantasy. It's not Disney. It's none of those things. It is life as it is being experienced by us in the current moment.
Okay.
So it's not only current, but it's reality based. A lot of other religions, to be honest with you, are about the past and about the future. The customs and the traditions of many of the religious practices in the world have to do with things in the past. The understanding that was true then.
Rites and rituals.
So rites and rituals, and also the idea that somehow there's something better beyond this moment that you can look forward to at the end. And in all reality, it's a big question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Buddhists say it's just a big question mark out there. What happens when we're done? So what we know is reality is that we have what we have right now. And so it's a reality-based idea, this right understanding, and it's also in real time.
He doesn't. You have a past and you have a future. He doesn't say you don't have it.
Exactly.
That was a little strong.
Yeah.
You have them, but you place them in the context of the present moment.
But
It's
that,
all
that assumes perception,
yes,
which
of course it does.
which is
Yes.
part of it.
Which is
Yeah, it is.
So we could
relativity too.
experience the same thing,
Perception
a
is
car accident,
That's part of right understanding.
and we
Is perception.
come back with a different view.
absolutely.
That's
And my understanding would be different than his.
that's
It
right.
could be.
That's
And that doesn't
relativity.
mean it's wrong. It's just
It
what
is.
I own,
It-
right?
It's your reality.
Also,
you
this
create your own reality.
also the reality based about this is that there's so much beautiful things around us and in us. And then in our reality, there's so much ugliness around us and within us. That's the reality, is that there is a struggle, and out of that struggle comes either the road to enlightenment or the road to suffering. We've talked about a 5-step process in the past about how to live in a healthy way in the current moment, in the current reality. These are the 5 steps. No matter what is happening, we observe what is happening to us and in the circumstance. It's almost, you talked about third eye this morning. It's almost like you are doing 2 things at once. You're living fully in the moment, and you're watching yourself live
Awareness.
in the current moment. So in that way, it's a positive dualism. Buddhists generally don't talk too much about dualisms and try to shy away from it. But that idea that we're doing 2 things at once is how you observe as the first step of healthy living. Then you spend some time analyzing. Then you and I have talked about this a lot, about the second stage of this, analyzing. That means that when you observe, now you try to make sense of it in the context of the current moment and also in the context of where we've been before. As a therapist, the third one is always of interest to me, and that is what happens when you observe and analyze is, interestingly, there's a mountain of feelings that shows up. So if you're going to do that in a healthy way, you let the feelings rise and fall. You do realize that every feeling that you have has a mountain ride ahead of it. The feeling will rise, and if you stay with it, the feeling will drift away. That's many times why we don't take action at that moment, because we're in the process of climbing and descending the mountain. Important in the human experience, very different than animals and all the things around us. We have this is a very unique piece to the human experience. But if we observe, analyze, follow the feeling hill, interestingly, there's only 2 things left: choice and action. That process is a very reality-based set of ideas: observing, analyzing, feeling, choosing, acting. When we do that, we begin to live in this third way, and that is we live from the inside out and the outside in. We're transformed in the process by which we sort through our inner material, and then we live that out. Also, interestingly, the outside material influences us and affects us, and therefore our inner lives are changed. That is also 2 circles working their way together, inside out and outside in. Interestingly, in therapy, psychotherapy, the traditional therapy that Freud and his gang started, was all about internal work leading externally. Current psychological work is many times cognitive behavioral therapy, solution-based therapy. Those therapies especially start from the outside. They're like, do something different and you will be different. And I think the Buddhist view is that all of this is a part of the puzzle. It's not like this is right and that is wrong. All of this is a piece of getting to a healthy spot. The fourth thing that right understanding is that it's fluid rather than fixed. A lot of religious practices are fixed. This is right, this is wrong. This is the history, that is not the history. The idea about a right understanding is what you understood when you were 10 years old. I'm assuming you might understand something different now. So it's fluid rather than fixed. In other words, your understandings are forever evolving and changing. And you know what that takes? It takes openness. That what we knew yesterday might not be what we know today. We know this in child development studies. A 5-year-old is a very different animal than an 8-year-old, than an 11-year-old, than a 15-year-old. We just accept that as kids grow and we see them growing in front of us, that they're evolving. Sometimes but you want to know, when you get to be my age, you evolve. You look in the mirror and you're just like, yep, that's a lot more wrinkles than 5 years ago.
Yeah, you get to be my age and you don't look in the mirror. You say, I'm not living there anymore.
Or you look in there and you're like, I earned every one of these wrinkles.
I'm not. I'm so glad I can't see myself.
Yes.
My kids come and say, you don't have any mirrors. I said, well, there's a reason for that.
Our life is a book of chapters. And if indeed we're going to live fluidly rather than fixed, it's a book of many chapters. Where we were then is where we were then. Where we are now is where we are now. Where we will be 5 years from now is where we'll be 5 years from now if we get to continue to live that experience. And so that fluid idea is actually evolutionary and revolutionary. People are so comforted by the idea of fixed truth. But I think the Buddhists say that that's a false comfort. Everything is guaranteed to change.
That's one of the things that is fixed.
Is fixed is the impermanence of things.
Impermanence of things. This too shall pass.
So we're a book of chapters, of seasons, of process rather than punctiliar ideas. Do you want me to explain that?
Yeah, what is that?
Okay. Where we continue to evolve along a timeline in chapters, let's say. And rather than that we are changed in periods, in moments of time. Punctiliar idea is that because I was married, now I am married for a lifetime.
What?
Okay, that's a good one. Can you?
Yeah. And so that's a punctiliar idea. At one point in time, at 8:04 one evening, they pronounced you husband and wife, or wife and wife, or husband and husband, whatever. Okay? A point in time. Supposedly changed. And yet, most people not really that changed, supposedly changed by that point. Because if there's no process with that point in time, there's nothing. You don't have a marriage. You legally have a marriage, but you don't have a marriage. And so the process of becoming a couple, of enlightenment as a couple, is a very different idea than now you are married. Now you have, because what it says is you have arrived. And you haven't arrived. You've barely begun. You might not know. When I got married, I knew so little about this person. Boy, did I find out.
This is why you never get married when you're drunk or stoned.
Wow. Obvious, yes. Thank you.
But saying that, Jeff, isn't marriage the antithesis to everything we're talking about in Buddhism? Do you know what I mean? Because we're constantly evolving and we're changing.
Absolutely.
And in a marriage,
I'll tell you.
Why do you think there's so much disappointment? Excuse me.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Why do you think there's so much disappointment in marital relationships?
Yes.
Well,
Because
Jeff, you said
you're always married. You're
That's
and
the punctiliar idea is that once you're married, you have now made that commitment for a lifetime. It's talked about in the services, for better for worse, in sickness and in health, throughout all of the thing. Unfortunately, a majority of people can't live up to that. Don't do the process of that. That's the statistics. That's the
and that's
reality.
true for careers. It's true for health.
Yeah,
it's true.
it is.
So it really, it's not a. I don't. I'm having trouble with the fact that is the truth. That once you do something, you're always there.
Yeah,
But that's not valid.
I'm thinking
I'm
it's a good
asking.
question to ask ourselves. See, we're talking about suggestions here rather than this is how you should do it, and those things. And that is, if we're in the process of becoming, always becoming and
Right.
becoming and
We're
becoming,
changing.
then we're changing. There are many times as a therapist that I'm like, okay, we've been working at this 6 months. I think we're at the same part as where we started. Maybe it's become clearer that where you started was
Know it
where
for the first time.
and so you've circled back around, and I don't know if you're interested in an opinion, but this looks pretty hopeless to me. You've all evolved past each other. You have nothing. There's no gifts left here.
You tell them that?
Absolutely.
You do say that.
Because I observe. This is part of what I was talking before.
Oh,
I
okay.
observe this. I sooner or later, otherwise you just drag them on as a client for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You get paid. Nice. But that's not
And
why
they're
I'm
still
doing
miserable.
this.
Yeah.
That's secondary to the process of helping people find where they need to land now, currently, in this present
I
moment.
understand what you're saying.
And so this is tricky stuff because it really throws some of our foundational ideas around, puts them up for grabs, and those things. I'm all for commitments, but I'm for commitments where people actually evolve and grow somewhere and continue to have things offered to each other, and so do we in our lives. So, another thing that right understanding is about is it's both, and Barb, you'll appreciate this one because you and I talked about it on the way here. It is both about theory and about practice. It is about the ideas of Buddhism that Ruthie and I talk about quite regularly and try to present, but it is also about the effort that it takes to move somewhere down that road.
Well, if you don't practice it, you might as well not even theorize.
Well,
Theory is just the substructure for practice.
it is, but it's foundational.
Yeah.
Some of these ideas are foundational,
Right.
and so the theories are important, and yet what you do
With them is
what you do outside of this hour that we do as a Dharma, what clients of mine do with the 167 other hours of the week, is where the real rubber meets the road. And so it's great theory, and it's comforting, and it makes sense, and it's reality based, and it's current, and it's fluid, and it leads us to a new kind of involvement with ourselves and with the world. But we have to practice it. That takes effort, time, patience.
It takes recognizing. For me, it takes recognizing how I can apply it.
that's what practice is.
Totally.
And,
Yes.
and making that leap between the theory and the
And the practice.
And it's not just going in every morning and say, this is what I'm going to understand. It's kind of an intuitive grabbing onto this and reacting accordingly. Does that make sense?
It's not the rock. The practice is the house.
Yeah.
The rock is the foundation of the theory. So I want to give you another thing that this is, and that is Buddhists talk very differently than other religions about our origins. How we are when we come into this world, when we come into a body. And Buddhists say that there's very much difference because We are pure. We are radiant. We are energy.
We carry the imprint from one life to another. So
Yes,
trying
and
to
it's
find
so
ourselves
it's
in the
fluid.
light.
It's fluid, not fixed again. It's not just this life.
Right.
It's many of the
It's
many
many
of the
lives.
things along the way. And so our origin is pure white light, and when we understand that, then we understand where we have to go back to, which is Ruthie's talk a week ago. That our goal in all of this is to come home to where we started. Yeah.
I'm a little mixed up about karma and pure white light. I know that that's what we have is our pure
Yes.
white light.
Yep.
Carrying it over.
Uh-huh.
The Buddhist
Yep.
beliefs, you carry it over. You're not coming into the world with a pure white light if you aren't carrying any karma.
Let Ruthie talk to this one.
Yes.
The pure white light is there no matter what you do. That is something that is latent, it's inherent, it's in everyone, from an axe murderer to a saint. The act that we were talking about last week is that for Buddhists, it's not a matter of repenting from separation from God, it's remembering our innate divinity, which is a pure white energy. They visualize it as a pure white light. So what you do in your life is imprinted in your consciousness, and that's what karma carries forward into your next life. But it's completely separate from the white light. You got that in both lives, no matter how good or how bad you are. It's separation from yourself that causes the suffering. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sure,
In other words,
it's
you're already a creature of energy, and that energy for everyone is the same.
I get it.
Okay.
It's just a semantic thing that I was trying to.
It's a good question.
It's a very good question.
Maybe we have to spend a whole talk on that question. To go back to the thing about origins, so we don't need to be fixed. We are fixed. We don't need to become whole. We actually need to circle around to our wholeness. It's all within us. It's all available. You have your answers. You have your solution. You have your heart. You have your throat. You have all the things that you went through today. These are all yours. These are your gifts. Be mindfully returning to them always. Come home. Come home. Come home is the mantra over and over to us. And when we come home, we're actually moving forward, which is to come back to where we came from is actually to go this direction.
It's funny because I just listened to a talk. I can't think of the man's name now. I've never heard him before. And very, very, very spiritual guy. And he was talking about it took him all those years, and then he finally had a true enlightening experience. And what it felt like to him, the overwhelming feeling was, he said, I felt I had come home. So which was funny because that's just what we were talking about the other night. I think it happens to be a really accurate analogy. We talk in metaphors, and to people, different people, that can mean different things. But that seems to be a very powerful analogy.
Lucy, I think you've mentioned a story before. Unfortunately, I don't remember it very well, but it was about, I can't remember the details, but it was like, oh, well, where can we hide it so people won't find it? It's like, oh, they'll find you here, they'll find you there. Well, if we hide within them, they'll never find it. You remember that?
I can't think of it right now. Let me think about it.
Yeah.
What is it about hiding in plain sight?
Well, basically, we'll never find our enlightenment unless we look within ourselves. And
Right. Oh, yeah.
We don't tend to look within
You always
themselves,
look
so.
inside.
Just to piggyback on that for a minute, so many other religious practices rely on some outside source.
Yeah, well, that's
for
the main difference.
to become fully
It's not
enlightened,
there's
to
no
use the
savior.
Buddhist terms. No,
Nobody's coming to save you.
yeah, there is no savior in this. There's no rescuer. You're
There's
the
no
rescuer.
intercession.
You're the only one with your answer.
Sometimes I wish I didn't believe that. It's true. Sometimes I wish I
It's
believed
more
that
difficult.
But once you know, you know.
It is more. Ruthie's absolutely right. That there's a difficulty to this posture,
It's
I think
the
it's so
responsibilities
freeing.
on
We're
you.
responsible for
but you want to know
Yeah.
once you've accepted, like she's talking about, kind of an acceptance that this is really my reality, and those things. Out of that comes the freedom.
But it's not there's no intercession.
There's nobody else who can fix this for you. Interestingly, in therapy, that's what I say all the time. I have no magic wand here. I have a process by which you can find your magic. That's all I got. I don't have your answers. I don't know whether you belong together. I don't know whether you'll ever have a relationship with that daughter you're talking about. I don't know how you'll do with your addiction.
So where
But
do you
you-
leave people with that?
Well, with tools. With tools, which is like this. You leave them with tools about how to find their way home.
Can I what you're saying before I forget it? The Buddhist toolbox comes down to this. If you really want to know not just the mundane, dualistic world, but the super mundane, unitary world, it goes like this. If you overcome your anger, your greed, your clinging, your jealousy, if you overcome everything that's in the second noble truth, you have overcome your ego. And when the Buddha talks about enlightenment is emptiness, you are empty of all those defilements that kept you from reaching that light that's within you. Because you hate yourself when you're mean, you hate yourself. I mean, I don't say you hate yourself, but you're aware of your own flaws because you suffer yourself if you make anybody else suffer. Does this make sense? So if you get rid of the anger, let's just take that one, or jealousy, whichever one, and it's not there anymore, when you finally are ready to reach enlightenment, you are empty of those things that held you back from walking in your own front door, from being home. And that's your ego. So when they talk about non-self, which is what confuses more people than anything else in Buddhism, when they talk about non-self, they are talking about an egoless self because it has jettisoned all those obstacles to getting back to your true self. That's it. And that's not an easy task. And you got to do a lot of.
It's not an easy task, but I'm going to say
but
this.
It's doable.
It's a possible task.
But the Buddha doesn't say anybody's coming to do it for you.
Yeah.
Only one person can do it for you, and that's yourself.
Right.
With help.
Sometimes.
From your friends, from books, from
community.
any source.
That's
Any
right.
source.
I want to end with 5 tools.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt your talk.
Yeah, you did. It's okay.
But it was right in my mind at that point because we're talking about where do you put it in practice. You put it in practice to get rid of these defilements. Here I go again. Go ahead, honey. Shall I leave now?
No, it's good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm egoless about it.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Here's 5 postures that can really help you get to a right understanding. Get your experiences directly from yourself rather than from other people's experiences and opinions. Let your experience be your guide. Your experience be your guide. This is firsthand rather than second sources. Tool 2. Do your best at laying aside your preconceived ideas. if you're going to really understand someone, if you're going to really understand your life, it will be that you don't have it already set what it is. Lay aside the preconceived ideas. Let it happen. If you build it, they will come. So it's said in Field of Dreams. 3, be open to different explanations of things than yours. Understand them. 4, take time to draw conclusions rather than jumping to the conclusions. This is indeed a practice of balance, and that time is your friend. Very anti-20th, our current day. That's why it was 2,500 years ago. It fit then, but it also fits now as an antidote to the way that we live. And the 5th one, be ready to change your opinion when presented with facts that contradict it. Be ready to change your opinion when facts contradict it. In that way, it's not just subjective. There is some objective bottom line truths. Yes.
What is the source of your tools?
Where did I get these from?
Yes.
I got these from the Buddha guy online.
Oh, the Buddha guy.
It's our website.
Okay.
I really liked the ideas.
I recognize, they're nice.
They are really nice, and so it's
Plain speak.
Yeah, you want to know, you have to sort through the Buddhist resources online because some of them are very some of them are like a Hallmark card.
Yeah.
And some of them are super in depth into the theory and the words and all those things. I tend to find things in the middle because it feels like where I'm at and where this group, is at, and finding those practical things. Barb was talking about the practical things. These are really practical things. Direct experience, non-preconceived ideas, openness to different explanations, taking time to come to your conclusions, and be ready to change your opinion if presented with things differently. Then you will come to the evolutionary process of right understanding. I want to read a poem. It's our favorite. If you haven't been here before, we've read it way too many times. Maybe not way too many times. It's just wonderful. Rumi. Think of this as it relates to right understanding. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Always a good ending.
And the Buddha says, be aware. Be awake.
Yes.
That's what Buddhism is, to be awake.
This is about waking up. Any other comments? Otherwise, Ruthie will lead us in a meditation.
I have one comment about the beginning of the talk, and I don't know really what I'm pointing at, other than when you were talking about the rock in storm.
Yeah.
And I flashed on the tornado victims, and you would have to be a superhero to be in that moment and find what we're talking about it almost is superhuman to be that. And so I sometimes think that it's attainable in some way. Maybe it's beyond what our imagination is right now as being human beings, but that it is attainable somehow to be the rock in that kind of a storm.
Absolutely. I think that's a good analogy to all of this. It's about being at the wheel of your own ship and running a steady, balanced course, that no matter what waves come at you or somebody else's boat tipping next to yours is creating the ripples for yours, that you run a solid, steady, tranquil course. I'm always intrigued by when you compare Christian and Buddhist literature. It's just like, are these the same people saying the same things?
Ultimately,
Ultimately.
they do.
That's my
Ultimately,
conclusion.
they do.
That's my conclusion.
The golden rule applies to everyone.
But for example, when Christians talk about the rock, they're talking about a belief in the Christianity itself and a faith.
Mm-hmm.
And Buddhism is based more on the Tao, or Hinduism, where everything is fluid. And faith is the ability to let go, to release. But that rock, it's just all metaphors. That rock is the ability to have faith in the Four Noble Truths or whatever instead of Christianity. It's to be fluid instead of solid, which is, and they both end up in the same place.
They do.
When you play around with them.
Yeah, I think the intent of both of those, quote, religious leaders was exactly the same.
Yes, but ultimately you get to the same place. One is separation from God, and one is separation from divine energy.
Yeah, right.
That's as simple as you can get. But that changes a whole lot of things in between there and there. But that's where it all ends up.
The other beautiful thing is all this suggestions. It's very, it's not heavy-handed. This is not heavy-handed stuff like, do this, do this, do this. I'm going to tell you. It is very much an invitation to consider.
It's so easy to understand that if you don't have the obstacle, you've liberated yourself from it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can keep getting rid of those things with the practices that are being offered until all of a sudden it just isn't there anymore, that's enlightenment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If you can get rid of all of them, man, you got it made. But
You got a steady ship.
you got a steady ship.
Should we do the loving kindness meditation?
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll end with a meditation.
It's the right time of year for metta. And Jeff's talk has reminded me of a little bit of a verse from Edna St. Vincent Millay. And it says, the world stands out on either side, no wider than the heart is wide. Above the world is stretched the sky, no higher than the soul is high. So it's Christmas. We want to open our arms. We want to embrace it. In the same point, she says, "Oh world, I cannot hold you close enough." It's a good season to let everything be receptive and open, in spite of so much difficulty in the world. But anyway, in terms of expansion, metta, everyone here know how to do it. Joy is new. So Joy, just to follow along, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to say a name, and then I'm going to say a phrase. You bring that person to mind, and then speak the phrase silently to yourself to that person. You got it? Where's Joy? Yeah, I thought I saw
You'll get it.
Sam.
You'll get it as we go.
Okay. So everybody, get back into that position that Pam was talking about. Take a few deep breaths. I find it's easier to see inside with your eyes closed, but for some people, they like a soft gaze fixed. Either one. Take a couple of really good deep breaths. Take it all the way down. And then, as we were talking about, bring yourself to your mind as if you were looking in a mirror. Smile to yourself. Say your name. And then say, "Dear whoever you are, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with ease, calm and peaceful. May I be happy. And now you'll notice you have an I and a you, and they're both you. So smile again at the I, you, and move on to the next person who is someone you love very, very much. Bring their mind, bring their image to your mind, and say to them, "May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy." Smile. Move on to the next person, a neutral person, someone you may or may not know their name. It doesn't matter. If you don't know their name, just call them friend. But it's someone you see often, or that you like, but you're not close. And you say to that person, "May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy." And now you move on to someone farther out, someone with whom you're in conflict. They don't like you, you don't like them, they've said something to hurt your feelings, you're holding a grudge, whatever it is. For this moment in time, within yourself, let go of all aversion, animosity, malice, all ill will, and see them as that pure light. And say, "May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy." And now, taking another big deep breath, take your hands out of prayer position, place them over your heart, which is another prayer position. And this is the only place, the heart is the only place where we can hold all of it, everything, in love. So as you think of the billions of people in our universe and out there in space, and I understand we've got a new space thing coming that is like nothing we've ever seen before this coming week. We'll see all kinds of new worlds. So anyway, there are worlds upon worlds, and we're going to hold them all in one thing, which is love. So now you say, "May all beings everywhere, on this plane and all other planes, be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. And now you rest in loving awareness. Release your hands when you're ready. If you're at home, you can stay with this feeling for a long time. And then we open our eyes and we conclude our talk for today. And I think it was kind of fun last week for everybody to say it out loud to each other. So smile at the person on the right and smile at the person on the left. And to each and every one of us, we say, you can join me. Go in peace. Go making peace. Living gently. Loving mightily. And bowing to the mysteries. Okay, guys, we'll see you next week.
Thank you. What a great talk. That was great.
Good.